Welcome to Opposition Territory here at the Philadelphia Sports Table Podcast Show, the longest running weekly Philly sports podcast show in the world. Over 12 and a half years strong. Got a great Eagles and Chicago Bears preview coming your way this week here on Opposition Territory. Coming to us from Windy City Gridiron. You know, we love our SB Nation sites out there. Got a lot of great folks coming on this podcast platform from the SB Nation. We've got Lester Wiltfong Jr., my friend. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us here, buddy.
Anytime, my friend. How you doing today?
I'm doing all right. Look, we're still kind of going through a post-mortem after this Eagles-Cowboys matchup that was seriously depressing to watch as an Eagles fan in so many ways. But here on this podcast platform, Lester, we want to be as objective as possible when we are talking about our Philly sports teams. It includes Philadelphia Eagles, includes us talking about the Chicago Bears as well, the season they are having, and this upcoming matchup and what we may be seeing. So, I mean, I'd love to get started off really talking about, as I've been doing on most of our Opposition Territory podcasts this season, is really talking about the strengths and the weaknesses of who the Eagles are going to be playing on any given week. So let's start with that. As the Bears are 8-3 atop of the NFC North here, let's talk about the biggest strength and the biggest weakness of the Bears. Let's start with the biggest strength. What is that strength heading into week 13 of the season? The biggest strength that we need to keep our eyes on as Eagles fans.
I mean, honestly, from a Chicago Bears perspective, it's all about the head coach. I mean, Ben Johnson kind of came in, he kind of changed this whole thing around.
Culture change.
I mean, the Matt Eberflus era was it was a disaster from the start.
Brutal.
It was just horrible. I mean, but Ben Johnson kind of came in, his offense, and here's the thing, his offense has not been clicking. Like when you watch it, you know, play-to-play basis, you're like, man, they're missing so much stuff. But then you look at the numbers, you're like, man, that's a top 10 offense. That's a top 5 offense. Like they had a graphic on before the last Bears game. The previous 3 weeks, they had the best offense in the league. So you're like, man, there's so much more meat on the bone here. And things aren't clicking. But the one thing the Bears have, you know, this whole year, since the bye, I should say, is the run game. The run game has been really strong. They put a lot of money into the offensive line, kind of revamp that along with Ben Johnson's scheme, which is just, like I said, it's beautiful. If you like, you know, running the ball, if you enjoyed that, Ben Johnson does some stuff that as Bears fans, we have not seen in a really long time. So there's a lot of motion. It's some duo stuff. It's some zone stuff, kind of mixes them in. It's just really fun to watch from that perspective. So the run game has been the strength of this run game, play action, kind of work off that. And Caleb's been good, you know, but he's up and down. But then again, you look back at the numbers, like, man, he's taking care of the ball. He's extending plays with his feet. You know, so, I mean, for the Bears, the one big strength besides the running game, just more generally speaking, is that offense.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to get into Caleb Williams a little bit more in detail, dissecting his growth as a quarterback this season. But let's flip that coin. What's the biggest weakness of this Bears team at this point, Lester?
Yeah, I mean, the defense has been rough all year. A big part of that is injuries, obviously, but, you know, they can't stop the run. It's been a problem with this entire year. So anytime you're going up against a good running team, as a Bears fan, I'm a little nervous. And of course, they got Saquon Barkley coming up. So
this isn't a good run team, though. That's the thing.
But I'm telling you, the way the Bears operate, the Bears can make even a bad team look good on the ground.
Right.
So the one thing the Bears have done is they kind of went to more of their beef package inside. Andrew Billings, who's like, I think he's listed at 320, but you look at that man, he's gigantic. So he is now in there. They brought up Jonathan Ford off the practice squad, who plays every now and again. He's another big body guy. So they're doing their best to stop the run, but it's just hard. I mean, last week they were missing all 3 linebackers. So the secondary is missing Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon.
Yeah.
You know, they think they're on cornerbacks 4 and 5. They're on linebackers 5 and 6 this last week. So it's a problem. The front's been okay, but they're not generating a lot of pressure besides Montez Sweat. So it's okay.
We're going to get into some of these matchups in a bit, but I really wanted to talk about Caleb Williams because coming into the NFL, him coming over from USC, I had some skepticism about how his game at the college level would translate over to the NFL. Obviously, first season, not all that great. And just like a lot of rookie quarterbacks, there are like no rookie quarterbacks anymore these days that come in and bam, it just clicks and they're able to get it done and they're a playoff caliber team. It just doesn't happen. Growth takes time in the NFL. going from college to the professional league, it just takes time. And he has certainly, Caleb Williams, taken steps forward this season. He has shown growth as a quarterback. Like you said, really not turning over the ball this season a lot, protecting the ball. And, he has put the Bears into some good offensive positions throughout this year. So, Lester, how have you seen Caleb Williams developing under center? And what more does he need to do as a quarterback to be even more effective?
I'll start with the negative first. His accuracy issue has been a little problem this year. It wasn't really that big of a deal last year, but this year he's missed some throws. He's sailing some things. I think part of it is I think he's still kind of thinking a little too much in the offense. He's not really just reacting. And then on the other side of it, sometimes his receivers aren't really, giving him any favors with some of the drops they've had. I know, he hasn't had any drops the last couple of games, but prior to that, I think the Bears were among the league leads in receivers dropping the ball. But he's just getting better as far as the operation of the offense, not as much freelance stuff. I know from a national perspective, they show the highlights. So a lot of people see, he's running around. He must be leaving the pocket too soon. That's not what it is. On a play-to-play basis, he's really good from the pocket. That's what he wants to do. If he can just sit in the pocket and do what he has to do, he'll be fine, content there. I was on my show last night. I pulled these numbers up. Danny Parkins, who used to be a Chicago guy, now he's more national stuff.
Yeah.
From the pocket, Caleb is averaging 210 yards per game, 14 touchdowns, and just 3 picks. Passer rating over 100.2. And while he's able to sit in the pocket, he has the 4th lowest pressure percentage in the league. So if he can stay in the pocket, he'll stay in the pocket, right? But of course, the highlight stuff is the stuff that he does give you. That's when the cape comes on. He can kind of get outside the pocket, make some plays. Those outside the pocket things have not really transition into big plays yet this year. Like I said, some of those were drops he had. Some of those he just gets out of the side of the pocket, just chucks it out of bounds. But like you said, he's smart with the football. That's happened last year. This last week, he took 1 sack, which was probably the worst play he's had this entire season, where he fumbled it in the end zone, gave up a touchdown. But other than that, he's been really smart with the football, running the offense as he has to. And look, Ben Johnson's hard on him. I mean, that's something he talked about when he took the job. He's going to coach him hard. And Caleb, to his credit, even last year said he wanted to be coached hard.
Yeah.
But those coaches last year, they just didn't do it. They just weren't at that level you wanted. And I think Caleb got a little lax because there was no one pushing him, right? I mean, you want to be the best. You want to be coached by the best. And I think he's getting that this year. And like I said, it's as you look at the stats, you're like, well, some games the stats don't look as good as they should have when he's really, really, really well. Other games it's the opposite. But overall, man, the growth's there. The offense is clicking when it can. There's, like I said, there's so much more left to go for this offense, and he may not ever get to the point where he's in that Pat Mahomes stratosphere,
right?
But as far as Bears fans go, he's the best quarterback we've seen in most of our lifetime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's another quarterback that's going to be playing in this game on Friday that has not been turning the ball over a lot either this season, and that is Jalen Hurts. I mean, we talked about Caleb Williams, his development, where he is at right now as a quarterback in this league. I'd really love to get your assessments on Jalen Hurts and what you expect to see from him this week in Philadelphia. I mean, there remains this controversy and narrative surrounding this Eagles offense where, things are clicking. Then all of a sudden it stops, it halts for a significant period of time where there are 6, 7, 8 drives where there is nothing going on. And then all of a sudden a spark happens and you have Devontae Smith with a 41, 43-yard reception. His body control is incredible. And my gosh, this team is back into the game. But, I think Jalen Hurts put some of that negative narrative last week to rest, even though they lost to the Cowboys. At the end of the day, I'm wondering, Lester, how do you see Jalen Hurts as a quarterback this season, and especially what you may be seeing this Friday?
I think from a national perspective, quarterbacks get way too much criticism. And I think me being a Bears fan, and like I said, it's been a long time since we've made anything to be happy about at the quarterback spot. So I kind of look at that through that lens. So if I see like a guy like Hurts getting a ton of criticism, nationally, I'm like, that's probably a bunch of BS, for the most part. That's just the hot take artists. That's, the guys in ESPN want to make sure they get that dig in. Of course, with Philly, just like Chicago, big city, a lot of passionate fans. So you take one little shot at Hurts, all of a sudden it's huge on social media, right? So I think it's kind of that's going on. But from a Bears fan's perspective, I'm more concerned with what he can do with his feet because, like I said, the defense has been pretty bad this year. They've been letting scrambling quarterbacks get quite a bit of yards against them. They kind of play a combination, man zone. They're not always, in man with their backs to the quarterbacks, but even then, they're so many backups in that secondary and the linebacker core. So they're giving that kind of stuff up. They're not really doing a good job of containing quarterbacks or kind of let them get out of the pocket and kind of make some plays out there. So from my point of view, I'm more worried about him as a runner than as a passer, even though, like I said, the defense is bad in Chicago. It's just been bad. But the crazy thing about the defense in Chicago is they're really good at taking the ball away. So that's been ingrained in them since camp. And for some reason, Dennis Allen comes up with these good plays on third down. So they're among the league leaders in third down conversion again. So those are two pretty good. If you're going to suck on defense, you better be good in those two spots. And that's where the Bears are at.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Again, folks, talking to Lester Wiltfong Jr. from Windy City Gridiron.com. Great SB Nation site. Lester, tell everybody where they can find you on the socials out there if they want to connect with you.
You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky. I'm at Wiltfong JR. Everything I write, of course, is at Windy City Gridiron. We have our podcast video feed is at Second City Gridiron.
Very nice. Very nice. And if you are watching us on YouTube, like and subscribe to the Philadelphia Sports Table podcast show. Also hit that bell to be notified when we post new videos. We're also on various social media sites as well. We're on the Twitter/X Instagram. Head on over to our Facebook page. We're on Threads. I'm over on Blue Sky. Just search out Jeff Warren. And I'm over at TikTok at Mr. Jeff Warren. So that's it. Folks, we got more coming your way. We're going to take a break, but when we get back, we're going to talk more about matchups that we're going to see this Friday. Philadelphia Eagles against the Chicago Bears. Stick with us. All right, we are back again with our good friend Lester Wiltfong Jr. from WindyCityGridiron.com. Great SB Nation site. Let's get into some matchups here, buddy. The Eagles secondary, I mean, it's looking almost similar to the Bears secondary at this point. A lot of injuries happening. Andrew Makuba is going to be needing surgery on his ankle. I mean, he's been having an interesting rookie season up and down for sure, but we're likely going to be seeing Sidney Brown taking his spot on the field. Adoree Jackson has a concussion, likely will not play this Friday, and Reed Blankenship left the Cowboys game with a thigh injury. How do you see the Eagles secondary in terms of what the Bears offense could potentially do to them? Definitely a weakness coming into this game, this Eagles secondary. This is going to be an interesting matchup. How do you think the Bears receiving core is going to handle this Eagles secondary?
We've yet to see a huge game from the passing attack. Last year, Caleb, I think, had three games over 300 yards. This year, he hasn't done it yet. So we haven't really seen that part of the game explode. So maybe this is a week, right? I mean, you guys have a lot of problems in the secondary. The one thing Caleb has been doing really good this year is going over the middle of the field. I think I saw his passing chart last week. It was pretty much the whole thing was in the middle of the field, which is, that's usually quarterbacks' last place that they get to where they really are having success.
Yep.
Caleb's done a great job there. I mean, it's DJ Moore is electric. Roma Dunze, Luther Burden, slowly but surely this whole year has been getting more and more playing time, whereas he was clearly wide receiver 4 early on. Each week more snaps, and now he's clearly established as wide receiver 3. He may be the most talented receiver on the Bears.
Okay,
he's just still trying to get things figured out. He's a rookie. One of the reasons why they brought him along slowly was he missed a ton of time in camp, but ball in his hands, electric. I mean, he has just got that going on. If you guys watched him at Missouri, in college, you kind of know what I'm talking about.
And yards after the catch too, right?
It really good there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what he's done all year for the Bears. Yep. And then, of course, DJ Moore is established. Roma Dunze is coming to his own. He's the Bears' top receiver this year. But man, Colston Loveland, the rookie tight end, he may have the best hands on the team. Yeah. He is just such a mismatched nightmare. And again, kind of like Burden, they brought Loveland along a little slowly because he had some injuries in camp. He had to recover from the shoulder injury he had at college. But each week he's getting more reps, and he's not officially technically a starter because Cole Kmet's your starting Y, but he is your move tight end. He's your mismatch guy, and he is a much better blocker than I thought he was coming out. Really good all-around tight end. But from a mismatch standpoint, he has the athleticism to split out wide. If he's matched up on a safety or a linebacker, he normally has the edge there.
Yeah.
And then he's too big for corners. So we're just now starting to see how Ben Johnson can kind of use him. And if you remember Ben Johnson from his time in Detroit, he had Sam Laporta.
Yep.
Kind of similar role, ton of targets there. And I think that's eventually what he envisions for Colston Loveland. So like I said, this could be a week where they kind of take the running game and say, hey, it's not working as best, but let's attack this Eagles secondary.
Absolutely. Look, folks, Eagles Nation out there listening, It could be a long day. It really could. This is going to be quite the matchup to keep our eyes on for sure. But let's move over to another matchup that I think is going to be absolutely fascinating. The Eagles' offensive line against the defensive front of the Chicago Bears. This Eagles' offensive line continuing to struggle week after week after week. And as we know, when Lane Johnson is not out there, things are an absolute mess for this offensive line. And we're continuing to see that. Second-year center Cam Jurgens is actually ranked as one of the bottom 5 centers in the league after an incredibly dominant year last year. Yes, he's been going through a bunch of injuries this year. It's obviously affecting him, but he's still out there. He wants to be a warrior. Be that as it may, right guard Tyler Steen has been struggling for week after week in various in-game situations. Lester, how do you see the Bears pass rush, the defensive front in general, really stacking up against this very inconsistent Eagles offensive line that's always been known to be dominant?
Montez Sweat has really heated up. He was kind of had a slow start to the early season, but then he had like a stretch where he had like a sack in 4 straight games. He had 2 sacks against the Steelers. Should have had a third, but he let Mason Rudolph slip away. Austin Booker, who the Bears just got back from injury reserve, he is a really young player. He came out of college as a redshirt sophomore, so he came in the league really young. He was now in year 2, worked on getting himself better. He was injured a lot early on in the season. He's kind of giving the Bears a little bit off the edge. I talk about injuries. I mean, the Bears are missing guys there too. They're missing their other starting defensive end, Deo Odengbo. So it's been Booker and Sweat. But you look inside, Grady Jarrett, who the Bears signed as a free agent coming out of the Falcons, pretty non-existent early on. But these last few games, he's kind of making a presence. I'm not sure if he was kind of recovering. There was a slight period there we had an injury. So maybe he just was kind of working through something in camp. It flared up. It got worse. But he missed like 2 or 3 games in the middle of the season there. But these last few games, his presence is showing up. He's penetrating. He's getting his hands up. He's knocking balls down. He's getting at the quarterback. I don't think he has any sacks, but he's getting pressures. He's getting hits. He's getting hurries.
Yep.
And then, of course, I talked about Andrew Billings. He's just a gigantic dude. And the Bears have been kind of letting him kind of play more of a run stuffer. But he's pretty good at pushing the pocket. I mean, I know coming out of college, he was like one of the strongest dudes at the time. I know in high school, he has set a whole bunch of Texas powerlifting records, and that's kind of been his forte in the NFL is just power. You can't move him, right? And then, so the Bears D-line has a lot of money invested in there. They haven't really had a huge impact yet, but the last few weeks are starting to come on.
Yeah, and they could certainly have quite an impact against this Eagles offensive line, again, that's having some challenges. So before I let you go, buddy, we ask our guests on our Opposition Territory podcast every week, what's one thing each team is going to need to hit on for a win? Let's start with the Chicago Bears. What's the one thing the Bears are going to need to hit on for a win this week against Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I'm going back to the defense because I'm pretty sure the offense will have some able to move the ball and they'll be consistent as much as they have been. But man, if the defense can get after the quarterback, like I said, Sweat's heated up a little bit. I want to see Austin Booker, second-year player. He had a fantastic preseason. Coming out, he was a speed guy. That's really much all he had. He had a speed and he had a long arm that he would use once in a while. He has really put together a much better toolbox of pass rush moves. And we saw in the preseason, it hasn't really translated yet. So I think if the 2 defensive ends for the Bears can get some pressure on Hurts and make him jittery back there, I think that's probably the best thing for the Bears.
All right. And to close us out, what's the one thing the Eagles, in your opinion, are going to need to hit on for a win against the Chicago Bears this week in Philly?
I think if the Bears running game is clicking, I see no reason why they should stop. I mean, if things are going good for Barkley and if that line's able to make some holes for him, and I think if that's happening and you get Bigsby mixed in there a little bit, I think if this is happening, like I've seen games this year where I've watched the opposition, I'm like, why would they stop running? They're gashing the Bears, and if they just stop. So I think if Philly just sticks to the run, if it's working, I think that it could be a really grinded out, slow, low scoring game where the Eagles come out on top.
All right. Very good. Again, folks, he is Lester Wiltfong Jr. from WindyCityGridiron.com over at SB Nation, at Wiltfong Jr. on various social sites out there. My friend, it was great talking to you. Absolutely love the discussion and this preview podcast. Come back on. I'd love to have you on the show at some point down the road, my friend.
We'll see you in the playoffs.
All right. That sounds good to me.
Nice.
All right.